All right, we're going to get started. If everyone wants to get seated and comfortable.
Okay, ready, guys?
Woohoo!
All right.
Yeah, there we go. More of that energy.
Hello, everyone. Bienvenidos. Thanks for coming out to the Central Library today. My name is Diana Olivo-Posner, and I am the Associate Director, Principal Librarian for the Exploration Creativity Department of the Los Angeles Public Library.
Yay. That's my boss. I'm Kevin Alcooney. Yeah, so please clap all the time so she doesn't yell at me. I'm Kevin Alcooney, also a librarian here in the Exploration and Creativity Department, and we're here to welcome you to this afternoon's LA Made program, Black Punk Now. Yeah, you can clap. They can hear you. Too. Before we begin, we'd like to take a moment to thank the National Endowment for the Humanities, our Library Foundation, and our behind-the-scenes staff for helping bring the LA Made programs to you. LA Made focuses on the diverse landscape of Los Angeles, highlighting the immense artistic and performance talent that has developed in the course of the city's eclectic history. If you'd like to see more of our amazing programs, please visit our online calendar at lapl.org/events, EVENTS. And for our LA Made programs, visit lapl.org/LAMade, LAMADE.
We would also like to take this opportunity to recognize and acknowledge the first people of this land, honor their elders past and present, as well as their descendants who are citizens of these nations. For more information on which territory you may reside on, check out native-land.ca. And just a couple of other housekeeping tips before we begin. Please silence your electronic devices. You know what those are. So as not to distract our amazing speakers this afternoon. Also, please take a moment to note the locations of exits at the back and side of the auditorium. Kevin, show them.
Right.
Good job.
All right. That's good.
Just in case there is an emergency. We acknowledge this a lot because there was the fire here at the library in 1986, so learn your history, know your exits. If you parked in the garage underneath the library today, you can get your parking ticket validated at the information desk in the main lobby, and the parking will only be $1. How much, Kevin?
$1. You can
right.
clap.
Yes, it's a deal.
$1 parking.
But it can only be when the library was open, so from 1 to 5 p.m. on Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay, what time?
1 to 5, boss.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, and please, no eating or drinking in the auditorium unless it's bottled water. We don't want you, want you hydrated. We do want you hydrated. And there is a fountain right outside along with the restroom, so if you exit, then go to your right, you'll see it in the hallway. All right.
Okay. And now for today's amazing program. Discover the inspiration and purpose that fueled the creation of Black Punk Now, James Spooner's and Chris L. Terry's latest book. The co-authors will lead a table reading followed by a moderated conversation. And here to kick it all off is Chris and James.
Woo!
Hey, everybody. Hey. Thanks for coming out, everybody, on this rainy day. We're going to start by reading our intros, which kind of talk about why we made this book, and also a little bit of our backgrounds and stuff, so I can get all of that into one thing. So mine is called After Afropunk. Let's put on a different slide. How about that one? I bought a computer on credit in 2001. One of the first things I did after sparking up my dial-up modem was Google Black Punk. There was exactly 0 links. In all of the World Wide Web, I was alone. Living in New York City, I knew I wasn't the only one, but sitting there in front of my Macintosh G3, it felt that way. I had to tell our story. I was living in a newly gentrified building in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, but all the old tenants hadn't moved out as planned. There were rats pounding, screaming, and suffocating in the walls. At times, I could relate to them more than my roommates. I was angry. Punks usually are. About something. I had a documentary in mind. The film was meant to be a critique of the punk community, the people I'd come to think of as family. At that point, 23 years old with a decade in the scene, my love had soured, and I began to resent all of these white kids who didn't see race. I went on the hunt for people like me, who identified as black and punk. I found a kid in Iowa who was in 6 bands and essentially ran the Midwest scene. I found a collective of women in New York's outer boroughs who started a showcase to promote themselves as black female solo artists. I found a black hacker whose brother was in a Black Power hardcore band with a bunch of white guys. These stories were my stories, and mine was theirs. All told, I interviewed just short of 90 people and strung together their stories together in a documentary, unknowingly giving us so many others an identity, Afropunk. Afropunk gave us a much-needed framework for conversation. In the spirit of DIY, I used the documentary as a springboard to build a black community within the scene. It was working. For years in the mid-aughts, black alternative kids from all around the country were eagerly anticipating Afropunk events. I called them the liberation sessions because what was more liberating than a mosh pit full of smiling black faces? The bands were the fans, and the fans were the bands. We were in the same room. While we were in the same rooms, no one's thought about how white punks saw us. No one cared if they knew we existed. We defined ourselves. It was everything punk rock should be. Screenings turned into concerts, and concerts turned into a festival. Afropunk, the film, morphed into Afropunk, trademark, the brand. And as mainstream interest grew, the dangling carrot of capitalism lured me in. I wanted it to grow. I wanted all the black weirdos across America to feel what we were feeling in those rooms. But organic growth and corporate sponsorship don't go together. I made mistakes I couldn't turn back from, and before I knew it, there was nothing punk about Afropunk anymore. I bailed. With me out of the way, Afropunk, trademark, became a corporate international brand, promoting major label hip hop and R&B. A new generation of black punks showed up to the fest and were disappointed to find the few rock acts hidden on a stage no one could find. Afropunk, trademark, did nothing to support the needs of Afropunks. Cries of co-opting of culture were drowned out by clickbait featuring fabulously costumed concertgoers. Once again, the angry underground took to action. Kids from all over the country stuck their middle fingers high in the air, pointed directly towards Afropunk, trademark. The underground needs the mainstream only so far as it needs something to react against. That the new generation of active black punks went on to start their own festivals, collectives, and conversations. That is where this book, Black Punk Now, centers itself. Some of these people I met while making the film are represented. Cartoonist Joanna Davis McGilliat memorializes her brother Matt, the scene maker from Iowa. Lina Dowes interviews the black women who made up the Sister Girl riot. Hacktivist Matt Mitchell talks ones and zeros with Ashaki M. Jackson. A younger group of writers, comic creators, and band leaders continue the conversation that my documentary, Afropunk, started. To read this collection of essays, stories, interviews, and comics from the after Afropunk generation is a blessing. No longer alone, I'm proud to call these folks my family. Thanks.
So the second part of the editor's note is called Beyond Bad Brains.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
How do I?
other, shoot, we had to get,
Boom.
there we go. There's young punk me singing on tour in Canada. So our editor's note, after Afropunk, Beyond Bad Brains was kind of the framework that we used, like the litmus test for what we included in the book. And here's my section, Beyond Bad Brains. I had to gamble on music in junior high, spending my birthday money on the cheapest releases by the punk bands that I'd spied on other skaters' shirts. The safest bet was usually an EP, a few songs for a few bucks. It didn't always pay off. The less that's said about that late, slow Black Flag album, the better. But when it did, it was more than a game changer. It was a life changer. I hit the jackpot with Spirit Electricity by Bad Brains. 6 songs for $4.99 at the strip mall record store by the soup and salad spot that my mom loved. Bad Brains had stopped me in my tracks when I saw them in Thrasher magazine, a black band credited with taking punk to the next level. I had to hear it. I grew up with a Hendrix and Thin Lizzy loving black father, but was quickly learning that being black and liking hard guitar music were mutually exclusive outside our house in early 90s Boston. Spirit Electricity let me bring a feeling of home with me as I set out on my skateboard. Bad Brains showed me that I could be me, and I put Let Me Help on dozens of mixtapes for new friends, hoping that this lightning-fast black punk band would provide me context as I rolled through my burb with an Afro pick in my hoodie pocket. My family moved to Richmond, Virginia. As I started going to DIY shows, I learned about polystyrene from X-Ray Specs and Bubba Dupree from Void, and even met a handful of other young black punks. But still, I was having a hard time reconciling my blackness with my punkness. I wish there was more out there. I still felt like you could be Bad Brains or you could be white. Even today, when I talk about black punk, Bad Brains are the first name that people mention. They deserve it. They are the first and best hardcore punk band, and music that they released 40 years ago still gets me so amped that my pits start to stink when I hear it. But while I've been busy with Spirit Electricity, exciting new music and art has been appearing, and I was really glad to use this book as a chance to get caught up and share a bunch of it here. A goal of Black Punk Now is to give punks, especially the black ones, a wider frame of reference, to show all the strains, styles, and identities of black punk that are thriving, and give newcomers to the scene more chances to see themselves. So when James and I say Beyond Bad Brains, we're talking about world-stretching fiction, like Mariah Stovall's feminist fairy tale, The Princess and the Pit, and the queer collective house sci-fi of Alex Smith's Smoke Again, Akai. We mean calls to action, like Golden Sunrise Collier's How To, Big Takeover, zines as freedom technology for black punks and other marginalized groups. And since punk is not punk without righteous, innovative music, we're spending time with life-affirming newer bands like Soul Glow, whose singer Pierce Jordan does a deep dive on the lyrics of their song Jump, or Get Jumped by the Future. And Rough Francis, whose front person, Bobby Hackney Jr., shares the story of discovering his father's proto-punk past on Punk Family Business. When we were first talking to Soft Skull Press about doing Black Punk Now, they asked if we could define black punk. We said it's punk by black people, and that can mean a lot of things. Well, there are common themes and threads that wind throughout this book, like liberation, community, and inheritance. The modes of expression and points of view are as varied as the black people who share them. The pieces in Black Punk Now work together to create a big picture, a holistic definition of black punk where every piece stands on level ground. And if you're a kid with a pick in your hoodie pocket, plus some cash from your aunt, and a list of punk bands that you want to hear, this book is for you. I hope you see your future self in these pages. Thank you. Okay. So it's not just James and I today. This is a family affair. We're going to be in conversation with Tunde Adabimpe, who's going to be joining us in just a moment. Tunde is the vocalist for the rock band TV on the Radio. He's also a visual artist and actor. And Kash Abdulmalik, who is one of the contributors. Yeah. So he's one of the contributors to Black Punk Now. Kash also plays in punk bands, and he's an actor and comedian. And he also makes amazing small sculptures that totally tripped my kid and I out last year when we went to one of his art shows. So the rough plan is we're gonna do a table read of a section of Kash's contribution to this, which is a script inspired by some of his own experiences dealing with his kind of relatively conservative father while playing in a punk band. And then Tunde is going to be in conversation with us. So let's welcome them out here. Kash, Tunde, join us, please. There they are. This is Kash. This is Tunde. We'll just stand up when the other people come up. Should we do you want to do the stage reading first? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, what's first, Kash? Tell us about your piece in the book.
Hey, everybody. Hi, my name's Kash Abdulmalik. How you doing? Yeah, right. It's Sunday at the library. Oh, yeah, that works. The piece that I wrote in the book is about my relationship with my father. I think a lot of us have weird relationships with our parents. Oddly enough, my mom, who's sitting here right now, who turns 81 tomorrow, and she's beautiful. I was lucky enough to have a mother who was like 500 fathers, and a father who was like no mothers. So the story is really about my relationship with music and how he related to that and how he treated me through that. And just, I guess, kind of growth through that. Yeah, and should we kick it off?
Yeah, let's bring up our...
Real
Shall we
quick,
do
Kash,
it?
what was, if people, we're getting the very refined Kash today. If we want to hear you shouting,
Yeah,
if we want to
I'm-
hear you
I
screaming,
scream.
what do we listen to?
I was in a band. I was in a band
Security?
called. No, yeah. I was in a band called Bad Reaction. If you look up Bad Reaction, Making Friends Is Our Business was our last album. You can find that there. Otherwise, I'm a pussycat, man. I'm just quiet nowadays.
People think punk rockers are always scary and mad and breaking stuff, and that's just kind of a release.
No,
It's
no,
not our...
we listen to Cranberries on Sundays,
Indeed.
right?
Every day and twice on Sunday.
Exactly.
Do you want to introduce? So we're going to be bringing up some of Kash's friends who are going to help us
Yes,
with this
these
reading.
are all my trusty actor friends, and they're all wonderful. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Dom Johnson, Cheyenne Perez, and Rael Ba. I stood up. Is that the thing? Yeah, I stood up. And Brandon Rahman also. Oh my God, Brandon Rahman. I'm so sorry. So we're all going to stand while you guys take the copies and sit, and we'll do it that way.
Check. All right.
Okay, cool.
Do you want to share a mic over here?
Yeah, I'll share my.
Okay. All right.
Oh, hey, here you go.
So our first section is on page 52, on the left over there, starting with the place.
Wait, who am I playing again? Clint, right?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
Everyone ready?
You guys good?
Audience?
Cool. Let's do it.
All right. Exterior, Brooklyn Heights, New York, day. A blistering, hot, muggy summer. A van full of punk rockers pulls up in front of a 12-story apartment as New Generation by Zero Boys plays from the radio. Interior, apartment elevator, continuous. Talib, now in his late 20s with blue hair. Darla, who's white, early 30s, the bassist. Chuck, who is Japanese and in his late teens, the drummer. And Clint, white, late 20s, the guitarist, all stand cramped in the small elevator.
So you grew up in an office building.
Well, no, man, it's New York. The city is just stacked on top of itself. Actually, I think this was an office building in the 20s or something.
Crazy. Your mom is coming to the show?
Can't keep her away.
Interior, Brooklyn apartment hallway. Moments later, the band saunters down the hallway to the Abdul Rahman's apartment door.
What about your dad and your brother?
Yeah, let's hope not.
Dude, the way you make them sound, I just want to see how they'd react when we go off. Like, maybe your dad will try to convert the crowd to Islam, and your brother will try to sell everyone heroin.
Well, you make it sound like I'm calling them fucking monsters. I mean, they're not. They're just, assholes.
Talib knocks on the door as the band chuckles.
Come on, man, I'm sure they're not that bad.
Slightly intoxicated, Fareed Abdul Rahman, in his early 30s, opens the door. He gives everyone the once-over twice.
Oh shit, what up, fat boy? These your white friends from California?
I'm Japanese.
Definitely not a guy.
Yo, this nigga ever tell you about the time I pissed all over and he was sleeping and I was fucked up? That's punk, right?
Wow.
I fucking told you.
Told him what?
Nothing, no.
You tell these guys that I'm an asshole, right?
No, I just just,
Because that sure sounds like a bitch-made movie, yours.
Fareed, this is Clint, Chuck, and Darla. Guys, this is my brother, the asshole that I was telling you about.
That's what I thought.
All right. Jumping forward, is it
Jumping
page
forward,
64
jumping
or
forward, page
62?
64.
Okay. So now we're at the band's gig later. Fatal Flaw dive bombs into their song about the drug-addled and disgusting streets of Hollywood and annihilates the crowd. It's fast and snotty, very much a throwback to the California hardcore of the 1980s. Throwing himself into the air and then to the floor, Talib writhes around, shrieking out the lyrics. The crowd storms the stage and starts a circle pit. It's exactly the reception Talib was hoping for. Mid-set, Talib notices his father going outside and not returning. This enrages him as he performs even more maniacally. As he does, the band plays tighter and the crowd goes apeshit. The entire set is blasted through in under 20 minutes. Hakama stands further back because the front of the room is full of kids slam dancing. The set ends and the band chats with other East Coast buddies. A drenched Talib walks over to his mother and gives her a hug.
You guys were amazing, as usual.
Thanks, Mom. I really appreciate you coming. Where'd he go?
He went outside because he said his ears were ringing too much. He had earplugs in, though. I don't know how.
She realizes her husband's lack of interest as she says it.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have brought him.
No, it's okay. I mean, honestly, I'm shocked he stuck around as long as he did. I tell you what, why don't you go get a Coke or something from the bar? I'm gonna go see if he's outside still.
You don't have to talk to him, hon.
It's okay. I want to.
Talib goes outside, lights a cigarette, and turns to see his father. Enoch stands outside in the cold, silent.
Hey, Dad. So, what'd you think of the show?
I'm sure it was good for what it was.
What it was? Jesus.
Who?
Nothing.
Beat.
Did I do this? Am I responsible for all of that in there? Is it my fault?
You're acting like I raped somebody or something. I'm not a convict. I'm in a punk band. It's not.
It's not the path for a Muslim. Your brother, as many problems as he has, still follows the tenets of Islam.
What are you even talking about? He's a fucking drunk, Dad. I mean, I can't see how you can let that go and ride my ass for this. It's hypocritical bullshit.
Don't you dare speak to me that way. I'm your father.
You're not even listening to what I'm saying. And come on, can we finally have an honest conversation? I mean, is that impossible?
Can you control your language?
Is it more fucking important than what I have to say?
Enoch starts to walk away.
I'm not doing this with you.
Talib tosses his cigarette into the street, then heads back into the club.
That's it.
Thank you very much. And thank you to our cast also. Thank you so much for taking time to join us today. Great job, y'all. Thank you.
That was fun. Thank you for only giving me 2 lines.
It was weird because it's such a small section, and it's like, oh, you only got 2 lines here. But you can make a meal of them if you want to.
Exactly what I needed. So, Tunde,
Yes.
entertain them with questions.
Well, first, I think, didn't you want to read? So Tunde did some of the art direction for the movie Wendell in the Wild for the soundtrack, which has a great selection of punk on it. And come to find out today, he wrote a piece about kind of getting into punk, about getting into indie rock, about being a black weirdo that goes as the liner notes for this. And will you share it with us?
I will absolutely share it with you. So yeah, Monkey Paw made this. If anyone hasn't seen Wendell and Wild, it's on Netflix. You should go watch it. Stop motion animation, which is one of my passions. And it's about black punk and parents and generations, and there's a supernatural element, so it's really fun. But we made this record. I don't have the record cover with me, but they asked me to make liner notes. And part of this movie, the lead character's name is Kat, and she's a punk, and her dad was also a punk, and they've exchanged a lot of music. And the idea of somebody kind of handing down music that they like is pretty integral to how I also came into this. So, yeah, I'm gonna try it. It's way too long, I'm trying to get to it quickly. In 1992, during my senior year of high school, my best friend grilled me about what kind of music I was into. I didn't really know. I was more into superhero comics and cartoons than music. Music was around, but I didn't really seek it out. I think I said Bobby Brown and Metallica. He winced and told me he'd make me a mixtape with some good stuff on it. I didn't know what a mixtape was. I didn't know what he meant by good or why he was acting so snotty and superior about the whole thing. The next day, he brought in a cassette tape with Devo, the Pixies, Buzzcocks, Bad Brains, Minor Threat, Fishbone, Black Flag, Madness, X-Ray Specs, Joy Division, and a few other bands on it. He'd cut out some bits of comic strips from the Sunday paper and collaged them into the case cover. There was a demented Charlie Brownish figure with a mohawk and sunglasses drawn in, blasting marker lightning from his fingertips that circled the track list. The spine of the case was tagged out in gold and blue Sharpie and read, "Electric Mayhem for Tunde." I got home, popped the tape into my older brother's boombox, sat on the floor doodling as the music pumped out of the speakers and washed over me. The songs were fast, distorted, and lean. Some of the lyrics were cryptic, but delivered with a directness that made you feel like you were already in on the message or the joke. The tape let me know that there was a world of information, expression, and art out there I knew nothing about, and now I desperately needed to know everything about it. Right after I came in raving to my friend, after I came in raving to my friend that he was right, no shade to Bobby Brown or Metallica, he told me that he had a cousin who was a DJ at a local college station, Carnegie Mellon's University student-run station WRTC, and she'd made this compilation for him. She also told him where she'd been finding out about new music. A shop called Ides in downtown Pittsburgh that sold records, tapes, and CDs, new and used. They also sold art books and comics, and both of us were big comics nerds, so this place became our mecca. We went to Ides as often as we could, combed through the new and used records and tape stacks in search of something potentially mind-blowing. There were no listening stations, so you'd pick something up based on the cover art and not know what you were in for, or you'd find a band whose t-shirt had been worn by a member of another band you were into, and you'd want to find out everything you could about it. On one trip, a clerk looked at what we brought to the counter, probably some issues of X-Men and a Sonic Youth tape, and peered at us. The thing I loved about record, comic book shops back then is that they were usually run by people who knew everything about everything being sold in the store, and definitely had strong opinions about all of it. Like the same person who would grudgingly, but also kind of lovingly, guide someone with an obscure patch on their jacket to the aisle where they could make hundreds of new punk and hardcore discoveries. This person would just wave in the general direction of the store if someone came in and asked them where they could find something overtly pop or mainstream. "Phil Collins is over there," I once heard the clerk said, "but I'm not gonna help you find him." Today, though, he was really gonna help us out. We went to the comics and books section and picked up a few things and brought them back. "You guys are in here a lot. Seem like you like art. I think you'll be into this." He put an issue of Fantagraphics anthology comic Blab and an issue of Drawn and Quarterly, also a comics anthology, on the counter. I immediately recognized the artwork of Dan Clowes, legendary American cartoonist who created 8-Ball and Ghost World, the latter of which was turned into a classic art house film, and Charles Burns, whose Black Hole is globally regarded as one of the best graphic novels ever. I'd seen their work on album covers for alternative punk bands before I knew about these comics, and I just did an internet search to refresh my memory and found a review that referred to it as the New Yorker for mutants, which could apply to the Drawn and Quarterly anthology as well. The comics were messed up in the best way. There was an energy and variety and a just-do-whatever quality to the artwork and the stories and artists that hit me exactly the same way the punk rock did, and the crossover element was astounding to me. Burns did the cover for Sub Pop Records compilation called Sub Pop 200 that not only introduced me to the seminal underground record label, but to bands like Mudhoney, Beat Happening, and Nirvana before they were Nirvana. One of the contributors to Blab was Mark Mothersbaugh of Devo. I remember thinking, you can do that? You could be in a band and make comics? What? For me, the new punk rock I was listening to and the new punk music I was listening to in high school became inextricable from the underground comics and zines I had discovered seemingly in the same stretch of months. Both these things reset my brain and became the filter through which I viewed and moved in the world. My friend, who ended up becoming an excellent writer and music journalist, asked me as we approached the end of high school, "What do you want to do when we get out of here?" "Be an artist and make paintings and weird movies and animation," I said. "What's your fallback going to be?" he asked, because at that point, we'd been told that dreams were great, but you should find something practical to fall back on because dreams don't come with a safety net. I thought about it for a second. I said, "Probably a cartoonist." He winced and said, "That's not much of a fallback." And technically, he was right. I didn't think of things, but I didn't really think of any of those things in terms of a job or career. They just seemed like the best means to continue being myself and to use that self to decipher and navigate the world around me, to make and show work and hopefully find a community of like-minded weirdos in the process. Was there a fallback for actively giving up on was there a fallback for actively giving up on evolving towards your fullest self? I didn't want to find out. This was me, age 17, no clue about what could go wrong, and terrible at math, couldn't play sports, solid C student in everything non-art related, talking big and feeling punk. I applied to art schools, got rejected a bunch. By some miracle, ended up getting into film school in New York, which was great because it got me to New York. Inspired by the underground comics that we loved, some friends and I self-published our own comics, took them to shops in the East Village that mirrored Ides, and we'd sell them on consignment. Took them to shows at CBGB's, Coney Island High, under Acme, The Cooler, and and we found the like-minded weirdos. I met people busking at subway stops and formed noise bands with them in the same afternoon. I was at art house movie theaters more than I was at school because friends who worked there let me in for free. I saw stop-motion movies by the brothers Quay and said, "That's it, that's what I'm gonna do." I almost flunked out of school because I stopped going to classes to focus on my senior film, 4-minute-long stop-motion piece that I was shooting in a basement day and night. Just about everyone in my class was making 2D or computer-generated films that pretty much guaranteed them work after school because those were skills that were in demand. I was pushing puppets around like I was in 1940s Czechoslovakia with no prospects. But this puppet movie got me a job working on the first season of an MTV show called Celebrity Deathmatch. I apologize, where I met a ton of other like-minded weirdos. To break up the delayed gratification of completing scenes on the show, sometimes a few days of work yielded 3 seconds of animation. I bought a used 4-track tape recorder and started to make songs on it. I couldn't play an instrument, I just beatboxed and sang everything over that. With songwriting and recording, a few days of work could yield 4 or 5 songs, at least the way I was doing it. And that was insanely gratifying, even if the end result wasn't at all polished or shareable. Almost by mistake, a few like-minded weirdos and I formed a band called TV on the Radio, and some of those beatboxed 4-track songs evolved into songs of ours that people really care about, for which I will forever be grateful. One of them's on this record, a soundtrack compilation from a beautiful stop-motion film that was animated in part by several of the folks I worked with at MTV. Is time a flat circle? I don't know, but I know that a mixtape that someone handed me in 1992 is pretty much responsible for everything I'm doing creatively 30 years later in 2022, including designing the art for this album and writing what now seems like a way too long set of liner notes. I apologize. In designing the album art, I wanted to make something that felt like one of the hidden treasures I found as a teenager at Ides. Informed by the underground comics and album art I loved, I wanted to present these characters from Wendell and Wild, rocking out to whatever kinetic mysteries lay inside. I love that this is a compilation of songs from various eras of music, punk and otherwise, because it feels like something that the film's main character, Kat, may have come across and felt energized, comforted, and edified by. Proof that there's life out there, several lanes full of possibility that are just waiting for her to jump in and mash it up. Also, that's the end of it, sorry. One of the great things about today is you can pop any of the names of these artists into a search engine and learn almost everything about them. The way they made what they made, the scenes they operated in, their trials and tribulations, their connections, crossovers, and influences on each other, and future generations of artists. You can comb through stacks of new and used anything from your laptop, and I encourage you to do so, but please also go to a shop and talk to someone if you can. They're still around, and they might be able to help you out in a huge way.
I love that.
That's very It's very, very long. Sorry, guys.
That was great,
Very
though.
long.
That was great.
Yeah.
It's my life.
One of the things I was thinking about, or what you've kind of been mentioning, what you were mentioning back stage, was that in March I have this. I approached the Northwest Film Forum about doing a Black Punk film festival, and at first it was just a conversation about doing like something. I don't know. I just had a friend who worked there. I was like, let me program something. And then as I started talking about it, I realized there were enough films that center Black punks that we could actually program a whole weekend of it. And it not even be any throwaway stuff, you know? And, you know, what you said was, what, we're in the future. Like
Yeah, I said we made it to the future.
Yeah.
High five.
Yeah, so I mean, just, you know, listening to your story, it's just, I guess that's part of the beauty of getting older, is that you have a time to look back and be like, wow, like, look at all that's happened in the last 20 years, you know, which incidentally is what we're talking about in the book.
Yeah.
It definitely is. It's weird because it's like within 5 years of when I first got in the scene in like the 90s, I was telling you backstage, it's like I got into punk in like the 90s, late 90s in New York, and I was like, hip hop was everything. And I loved hip hop, but I also loved this other thing. And while I loved this other thing, I was getting aggression from other black kids that I knew, being like, what are you doing? Like, you're not supposed to do that. You know, like somebody even like kind of corrected me, being like, oh, don't do that. And I was just like, nah, I gotta do it. It's just that it's speaking to me on another level. Like it's that's inside of me already. It's just, that is me and now I am it. And to see not that many people have to go through that nowadays as a kid, it's huge.
Yeah.
Huge. I remember sitting on the train listening to Minor Threat, because Minor Threat was like the one. I think when I heard Betray by Minor Threat, I was just like, it was like everything went dull. And I just heard the beat, just like, it was just like, oh shit. This is who I am, you know? And it was everything. But I remember sitting on the subway, getting looked at by thugs, and I had to like keep my head down and put my hands over my headphones. That went over my head because it was a long time ago. And I'd be like, oh, dude, I don't want to get my ass kicked. You know, and I don't see people going through that nowadays. And I mean, that's really, really cool.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm mad that I'm old because like my ankles hurt, and sometimes I'm mad that I'm old because there's so much. It's so much easier to be like black and into alternative stuff, into weird stuff now, and I'm so grateful for that. Yeah, that's kind of why we made this book. Like, it's kind of a gift to our younger selves who could have used it.
And it's cool to be a part of that whole process. You know?
Yeah. In a, you know, like what now we can see as a tradition, you know. Yeah, that's something I know when I see younger, you know, again, feeling old. When I see younger bands, one of my first things I think is just like, where the fuck were you guys when I was like 19 and 20? No, really, like I go hug people. I'm just like, and they're like, who's this weird old dude? He's happy about me. But I'm just like, where were you? You know, like when I think it's, even in the book, when I was like reading this, I got the same feeling. I was like, where, you know, there's some people who I know where they were when I was 20. Like when I'm reading about Carolyn Honeychild Coleman, who was one of the first people I met in New York, who was just a punk and an experimental artist and a black woman who was doing all these things that I loved. And little, you know, scenes like that, but really the feeling is like of, I feel proud of all of these bands. I feel comforted by the fact that they're, you know, they're doing what they're doing. And I also know that, you know, as easy as it is to make friends and community online, like, you're still doing it because you're angry. You know, it's not like everyone found each other and was just like, let's start a sewing circle. We made it. It started, you know, it's great. We all made it. We're fine. It's like, no, you've got more people in your crew, and you know, hopefully you're exchanging ideas about how you can take nothing and make something with it, and how you can make your own way. And something I liked about all those indie scenes, you know, I had friends who were pressing 7-inch records, and I was just like, how are you making an actual record without like a label? And they're like, oh, we do have a label. I was like, where's your label? It's like, our roommate upstairs made a label. I'm like, no, but how does he do that? And they're just like, no, we can do whatever we want. We have, you know, and now thinking about the internet, thinking about, you know, even having a printer in your house, you can do whatever you want. And that's very inspiring to me.
One of the things that I think about when I think about the progress, because I do talk to a lot of younger kids, and it does feel to me easier, but when I listen to them, I recognize like how so much of the things that we talk about, or the things that are in my film Afropunk, like are still present for them, including my own 14-year-old black daughter who's into punk, you know. But the thing that, the major difference I see is that when we were coming up, even in New York City, where it's a very black and brown space for underground music, I felt like the thing that we all had in common is, meaning me and all the other black and brown kids, is that we don't talk about being black and brown. Like, we are there, first for punk, second to like make our white friends feel comfortable, and third, and a distant third, you know, to be POC, right? Yeah. So when you have that experience of going to shows and race doesn't matter, and downplaying your, air quotes, and you know, downplaying any difference that you might experience, you know, as a Muslim punk in Bed-Stuy than your friend who's, you know, from Midtown or whatever, like, you know, that wears on you, you know, that does like create, ultimately for me, it created a lot of self-hate, and it's something that I hear from other people as well. Today's black and brown punk, because of, well, I should go back and say that like punk is always in reaction, you know? So, you know, if you look at something like Riot Girl, like, why did Riot Girl start? It was in reaction, you know? It's like, fuck you, we, you know, not only can we do this, but we've been doing this, you know? And at a certain point, that happened for black and brown punks, right? So all of these bands are around, all of these festivals that are geared specifically to uplift the experience of being a black punk, and now you go to shows, you're able to go to shows like a Soul Glow show or a Zulu show or many shows that have you know, Spanish-speaking singers or whatever, and if you are not, like you enter a black space, right? You enter a Latino space, right? And if you're not black or you're not Latino, you just have to be in their space, you know? And that is like each one of us have like a little contribution to that, you know? I know for a fact, as TV on the radio grew, and I watched you grow from a 2-piece to a 3-piece to a 4, basically collecting every black person who lives in Williamsburg.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, you, join the band.
And also making it that, yeah, every black person in Williamsburg who had glasses was suddenly in TV on the radio. It's terrible. I can tell you stories. It's bad. Yeah.
But that was like, you know, I remember feeling like, okay, like your method of representation was literally just by being there, right? Yeah. It wasn't like outwardly creating a black space or whatever, but it is. But I remember when I was interviewing people for Afropunk, I remember, you know Ralph Darden?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So he didn't know you at the time. He was in this band back in the day called Franklin, another band called High Life Savant. And he was like, yo, I'm moving to New York to join TV on the radio. I was like, oh, you know those guys? He's like, no. But apparently they're hiring.
Yeah, they were set up
Apparently,
at
I've got all
Ellis
the
Island.
credentials.
So you guys were set up at Ellis Island.
Yeah, exactly. I've got all the credentials. That's very.
So, anyways, I think that on the issue of just being 40 plus in the scene, looking back, is like, oh, we were doing our job that whole time, like, to help create the world we wanted to live in, right? And so much of what this book is about is like both celebrating those last 20 years, but also exact like what's happening now,
Yeah, and I know we're all middle-aged-ish up here being like, in our day, huh? But big thank you to the young people who are kind of picking up the mantle and for doing this and for creating this beautiful thing. Like it makes me so happy to see.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So, you got any questions?
Do I have questions for you guys?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. So what was the process of, what was the list? How did you make a list of who you were going to involve in the book, and how did you find everyone? Yeah, that's the first question.
We made kind of our dream team, like the list of the voices that we'd love to have in there. A lot of them were people that we know, the Venn diagram of like people who are black and punk and want to write something, like in the middle, it's not that big.
There you go.
So a lot of it was our friends, and we were editing a book. We didn't want to get accused of gatekeeping it. So we did we put out a call for submissions as well. So some stuff came in kind of completely by surprise. But it was a lot of friends of friends reaching out through our own networks, our own communities. And a big thing we wanted was we didn't want it to just be like a list of bands. We didn't want it to just be about music. We wanted it to reflect how we see punk as kind of a progressive lifestyle. Everyone in this book is like a multi-hyphenate in some way. You've got a band, and you're a visual artist, you're an activist, you're a ceramicist. And we wanted to show that it isn't just about like putting on some cool clothes and shouting. That's a great part of it, but there's more. And we want people to kind of see that.
Yeah, and also trying to show just through the fact that the book exists, that punk is not just a sound. It's not just like some of us don't have any musical talent, and
that doesn't always stop people from starting bands, though.
That's true.
It shouldn't. It should not.
I can scream, that's it.
That's about it. I can count to 4 and scream. And
Yeah. Well,
Even that's hard.
I don't even have that much. Believe me, I've tried. So I mean, I think for me personally, like really early on, after many failed attempts of like being in bands and being told that my screaming voice sucks, like I found zines, I found putting on shows, I found like having a record label, various ways of like participating, right? And taking that into adulthood, making films, writing became like, oh, this can also be punk. We can also promote our community this way. And, so when we think about punk as a community, we should think about like what is a community, and like what does a community need, and a community does need a way to talk to one another, and for some of us, music isn't the only avenue,
When you, well, first off, when did you personally get into punk music?
I have a whole book about it. Thanks for asking.
Oh, well, yes, I know, but for those who don't know.
Yeah, I have a graphic novel called The High Desert. That's about my first year in punk. It was 1989, 2 hours from here, like in the desert. Yeah, and I was fortunate in that the first punk that I met was also black. So it felt like an open door. Unfortunately, the second, third, fourth, fifth, and 20th punks I met were like Nazi skins. So they were very, that closed the door pretty quickly. Yeah, it's a good story.
Yeah.
That's why I turned it into a book.
You should read that book, first off.
It's
And,
called-
What about you?
James's book is called The High Desert. I also highly suggest it. I was like a skateboarder who liked hip hop music, and I copied a Nirvana tape and a Fugazi tape from one of my friends when I was 12. That was like a really special Christmas break where I got both of those tapes and a decent skateboard. And I kind of worked backwards from that. My family moved to Richmond, Virginia, and we lived about 3 blocks from a club that was called Twisters at the time, and they had like all ages shows all the time. And I started going to see like hardcore bands with my friends that I skated with. And I remember that my family was having money problems, and I felt like I was already pretty punk, but didn't realize it. I was like, the American dream doesn't work. And I really like the idea of things being so accessible in punk. Like, you and your friends can start a band. You can play for your friends. You can do this. It made me feel capable. I was empowered in a way that I wasn't before. Yeah.
Yourself, sir?
Oh, I was in, my buddy Jason Roman, this Puerto Rican kid who I grew up with, and I remember we were in like 4th grade together, and then I didn't see him for years. And next time I saw him, he had a shaved head. He was like, "Yo, I'm a skinhead, man." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" "What are you talking about?" And he just played me a bunch of music, and I remember it was like Sham 69. I think the Misfits were on there. I think the Business was on there. Definitely Minor Threat. I remember I was like, but yeah, I remember he made me a tape. We went skating. And my brother used to skateboard, so I took my brother's skateboard, because he didn't skate anymore because he was a hip-hop thug now. And
Throw the
so yeah,
skateboard
he
away.
was like, "Oh, I'll catch it." So I took that. We went skating, and he was like, "Do you like this?" And I was like, yeah, I don't know what it is, though. And he was just like, "Hang out." And he made me a tape, and I took it home, and I remember I went to school the next day with it, and that was when that Minor Threat thing happened. But there was also all these other bands on it that just instinctively was just like, "Oh, dude, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. I don't know whatever I'm gonna do, but it's gonna be part of this." And I think just jumping a year later, I remember specifically because as many times as you go to a show as a black kid, somebody's gonna bring up the Bad Brains. Somebody's gonna do it. It's gonna happen. It's not a bad thing, because the Bad Brains are great. But I remembered my friend played me a tape, and he was like, "Check this out." And I listened to it, and I was just like, "Dude, what the fuck is this?" And then he shows me the tape. It's the ROIR tape, the self-titled. And he hands it to me, and I look at the cover. I'm like, "Damn." And then I open it up, and I'm just like, "These guys are black. I'm black too. We got something in common. 2 things." So it wasn't, in a weird way, as a kid, just me personally, and I'm sure a lot of other people, when I saw that, it was oddly enough, because I was surrounded by people who were kind of giving me shit for it, it was permission. It was permission to be like, "You too." And it was just like, just go, do it. Start a band tomorrow. Start it right now. And I did. So that was everything. So yeah, those friends that give you those tapes, it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. Yeah. Or just, the thing, I think I didn't put it in that, but I really, getting to New York and finding those other, the other people that you connected with, there were a lot of queer punks who like, you know, I mean, I think in high school, you know, and all ages shows, there were bands that were, you know, comprised of openly gay kids. But it was still like really, like that to me was super punk rock because it was still at a time where it was like.
In New York City?
This was in Pittsburgh.
Okay, I was gonna say.
Yeah, no, in Pittsburgh it was like, no, you wore a pair of combat boots in Pittsburgh and people were just like, you were to throw you in a sewer, you weirdo. But like bands like Pansy Division and there was like whole scenes, which to me, for me, it was like anybody who would have been beaten up in my high school, that's whose side I was on, you know? And there were just like variations of black kids, brown kids, queer kids, especially at all ages shows where everyone could just come and hang out and money wasn't an issue. I just had a question. What's going on over there? Snoring.
Yeah, somebody snoring?
Is somebody snoring?
Someone snoring.
Don't say anything. Don't say anything.
Oh, okay. No, chill out. Just
Everyone be quiet. You guys, everyone, shh. Keep it down. We love you.
I feel like we love you.
Don't do that. Let him sleep. Let him sleep.
You're dreaming. It's all a dream. It's all a dream. Oh no, I completely forgot. I was gonna ask you. Oh, speaking of, we're all artsy.
Yeah.
When you did you write to the people who did comics in the book? There's some great comics in this book by mostly creators I didn't know about, and I'm gonna tell you a brief. Well, my question is, did you reach out to these folks, expecting them to turn comics in?
Yeah.
Okay. And also, I'm glad. Did you find them through work that was in books? Did you find them through works you'd seen in magazines? How did you find the comic art?
Well, because my graphic novel came out the year before this, I was like on the comic circuit, right? And like so, doing various, you know, like comic shows and panels and stuff. I was, you know, I'd befriended other black punk comics. There was a few people who I wanted to be in it who were just like they were just swamped in their own projects, so they weren't able to step aside to do it. Or one was like, I have this one, but it requires color, you know. And it's like can't put it. So there are quite a few black punk comic creators. But all the people who are included in this, I specifically was like, I would love for you to contribute a comic.
You personally?
Yeah.
Okay. Right on.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, I'm always there's always going to be new people who I'm unaware of or whatever, you know. But the community is also not that big, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like just before this panel, the four of us were talking, and we all have these cross sections of like, oh, you were at that show, you know, because we just all happen to be in New York at the same moment, you know. So.
Same with these conventions in this.
Yeah, I mean, like for anyone who hasn't been to not a Comic Con, but like a comics arts fair, it's basically like the zine table. I mean, it's basically like the merch, like the zine tables. You know, it just feels like a punk show without bands. You know, it's just like, oh, all of this is just the merch tables.
Yeah, no, exactly. And folks making stuff.
Yeah, and it's just like kids making, you know, zines, making comics, like whatever. It's wildly different than Comic Con. That's, you know, very mainstream, and you know, people like us will get pushed into the artist alley.
There's a corner.
Whatever.
There's an artist alley.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the dusty broom closet in the comic store with the rest of the freaks.
Yeah, I did one of those Comic Cons. The one in Seattle, and the artist alley was mostly just people who drew like She-Hulk, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So I remember like because I had the high desert, and I was just like, I actually did really well because I was the only person who was like selling a graphic novel.
Okay.
you know?
Yeah.
And it was like specifically punk, so anybody, I'm just like, profiling people. You, come here.
Yeah,
You know, and they're like,
exactly.
oh, I wasn't expecting to buy any comics. I'm like, we're at a comic festival, you know? They're like, I just came for posters or whatever, you know? I was getting enamel buttons, you know?
The door was open.
In the book, A.D. Crowley, who has a comic in the first section called Tough Guy, James and I were in a punk comics anthology with him, and we kind of got to talking. And he sang for this great hardcore band in Richmond called Ipecac that I remember from when I was a teenager. And he was one of the first people that got us something, and like we were working with him to develop his story a little bit. And I remember that was a moment where it's like the book was no longer theoretical. It's like we're making a book, and this is that's when it felt really real.
And
for
actually
me.
editing. Like,
Yeah, taking stuff out. Yeah, that's cool. I say this too. Yeah, when you do get the book, they're just the coolest thing. I mean, I guess that's all. Everyone's talking about themselves, but like the comics in this book are biographical. I mean, by and large, and that to me, when I was coming up in comics, the comics I'm mentioning here, Drawn and Quarterly, it was the first time I'd ever seen autobiographical cartoonists where someone's just like, oh, you can just live, you can write about your life and maybe embellish here and there. But the thing about all these comic artists that I loved and all of these, Drawn and Quarterly was mostly autobiography. I was like, there are no black cartoonists in here. And as someone who was actively trying to be a cartoonist, I was telling you from like probably 17 to 26, I was like, this is what I'm gonna do with my life. I'm gonna draw comics, I'm gonna draw underground comics, cartoons. There was nobody. And that's why it's really encouraging to see these now. And my own story with comics is there was a small press comics expo, which is also like an art comic. It's not Comic-Con. I'll just stop and say also for an underground cartoonist, big Comic-Cons are a wildly depressing experience because people are really walking by and like looking at your stuff. Like you said, it's not She-Hulk, so they're just seeing like a pile of garbage or like a moldy sandwich in place of your book. But I was at this art comics fair where I was kind of like, okay, great, I'll be able to sell this comic I made. It was called Sticky Bun. It's ridiculous. And this would be great. So I went down there and I met, you guys know Keith Knight?
Yeah.
So I met Keith Knight, what is his show called? He had a show. Woke, yeah. So he had is it Netflix? I forget. Hulu. So on Hulu, Keith Knight has this show called Woke, and it came from his comics, and he did a weekly strip, I think he's from San Francisco?
Yeah.
Called The Night Chronicles. That was one of the first comics I saw in any, like free weekly that had a black person as the protagonist. And he was he kind of had a punk vibe to it. But I remember I met Keith Knight and it was just like, oh my God, it's Keith Knight. And I showed him my comic and he said the nicest thing. He said, wow, he's like, I can't believe this is your first thing. It's so accomplished. And so and I was like on cloud nine. And then I remember I took the comic there was a group of Israeli cartoonists, like art cartoonists, and I gave one of the comics to them, and I heard them talking in Hebrew, and I was like, oh, what are they saying? What are they saying? And one of them said, he's like, oh, we've been telling people we like their stuff all day, now we actually mean it. And I was like, okay, that's great. Thank you. And then there was someone I knew who also worked at MTV. He worked on this show Daria, and his name is, I'm gonna totally bust Jason Little up right now. But he had this comic called the B Chronicles. I forget what it was. He's excellent artist. But there's kind of an Alice in Wonderland theme to his comic. So he's wearing a big top hat and a monocle and sitting by his table. And I was like, oh yeah, Jason, this is great. Great to see you. And I gave him my comic and he's like, oh, this is so great. And then he said, well, this must be weird for you. And I said, what's weird? He's just being the only black person at a room full of white people with their comics. And I looked at him and I was like, I was suddenly a space that I thought would be completely safe, as far as me doing my shit, my independent shit. I was like, this dude just ruined it for me. And and I look back on it now, and it's weird because it made me stop making comics. Yeah, but in this weird way of just like, because the thing that occurred to me, first off, I was like, well, that fucking sucks. And you just like, made me very self-conscious about something I wasn't thinking about. But also, like, I remember a few months later, I was kind of just like, well, who am I actually talking to with this stuff that I'm making? Which I realize in retrospect is a very, very important, it's a very important thing to take, like there are two avenues, I think. Like one avenue is just like, I don't give a fuck. There's like weird subliminal subconscious shit coming through me I don't know where it's from, so I don't care who it's for. But then, I definitely got into a mode of thinking I want to make something for my younger self so that if anybody comes up against a wall like that where they're just like, well, this must be weird for you, they can respond by just like, you're fucking weird. I don't understand why you're saying that to me. And when I rewind to that moment too, I was just like, I don't believe I let a guy who was dressed like the Mad Hatter like ruin my fucking ruin my vibe for such a long time.
I have a TV on the radio question. Was there I feel like there was a moment where, and I don't know if this was all along, that you guys were successful, and then you brought like Apollo Heights with you on tour or whatever. Like, were those like conscious decisions? Like, look, we have like this, I don't even know what your audience looked like, but it's like, this is our audience, but we're presenting, we're presenting Black.
It definitely, as it got bigger, the audience was predominantly white, and but yeah, any chance we got, we would bring someone who we liked, but like if they were an artist of color, if they were queer, if they were whatever, we would try to just travel like that, because most of the time people in the audience are not seeing that, and a lot of those artists aren't getting a chance to be in the venues, the size of the venues that we were in.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who don't know the Velt or Apollo Heights, they're like a shoegaze band, Black shoegaze band from like the mid-'80s.
Mid-'80s and '90s. Yeah.
But they're still a band. Like they still tour like very just fucking great, but like never got what they deserved. So I think being allowed to be on stage with you guys or share the stage then introduces all these people.
Yeah, and like playing with somebody who kind of, like made whatever path they made, they contributed to it not being a weird thing, for you to do what you're doing. And it really is like, it's the mode of like, you can't say that this doesn't exist now. And with so many things I want to do that, it's just kind of like, you can't say that this is impossible, you can't say this doesn't work, even if
if you can say there's a pioneering shoegaze band was Black.
Black, yeah.
Like people are like, wait, what?
I mean, yeah. But it's even with, like we come back to Bad Brains, and it's funny, there's someone who when I was on Instagram, who I followed on Instagram, who goes by the name of Afrovox, and she is like a noise artist, and she was just going into how every time she goes to a punk band, there's always some dude who comes up to her, no matter what the show is, a noise show, is just like, oh, I think you'd really be into Bad Brains. And she's just like, yeah, of course you think I would really be into Bad Brains. Let's talk about why you think about that. But yeah, it's just, I feel like.
Did you guys ever get any reviews that were like, it's like Bad Brains meets.
Oh my God, so many.
Like gospel, it's like if Bad Brains were a barbershop quartet.
Yeah, exactly. If Bad Brains was just a cappella and had fallen down a well with Joy Division and decided to climb out on the backs of Nirvana. Yeah. A lot of stupid shit. There was, one of the funniest things, we have a member of the band who is white, my friend Dave, and I remember one of the first interviews when we were just like kind of a two-piece that we had, someone came up and said, so you're Black, and you're not. Like, how did you guys like find each other and make music? And I was like, that's seriously your fucking question? I was like, we were roommates, and it's not 1958.
So you're like a black and white cookie, but you're people.
Exactly, but you're people.
Tasty.
I think it's delicious, but I don't understand it.
You know, I was just thinking like, if this book, it's like if Bad Brains were writers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But as ridiculous as that sounds, Chris and I got interviewed, and one of the first questions was about a review that we got on Goodreads that was like, if Bad Brains isn't in it, it's not worth the paper it's written on.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, first of all, there's a whole section. You just heard the whole section that's about Bad Brains.
The person who wrote the review should read the fucking book.
Or
Don't
at
read your
least,
Goodreads, people.
Yeah.
To the writers in the room, Lord.
I would have been like, you don't know how much this paper costs.
It's quite expensive.
So Bad Brains, I guess to like boil it down, they're just like a euphemism for black people with guitars. It's like,
No,
if it sounds like
100%.
anything else, but there's a black person with a guitar, it's like, oh yeah, it's The Cure mixed with Bad Brains. Yeah. Oof.
Should we take audience questions?
Yeah, what's going on out there? We're having fun up here. We hope you're having fun out there.
And thank you for coming
Do y'all have any questions?
Oh, hold on.
We have a mic, we have a whole.
Yeah, okay, I've got it. All right, so, because we're recording it so people can hear. All right, so if you have a question, raise your hand.
Can we hear just a snippet of you,
What do you mean?
of your different, the things you do, some of the, besides comics, okay? Besides comics, you also are into punk. I assume, I'm just walking off the street, okay, and wanting to hear, and you're very interesting, but we don't hear any of the punk.
Oh, the music?
Yeah.
Do we have?
Can you
There
guys
is
can you just like do your vocal routine?
Scat.
There's a whole list of.
Take it.
There's a whole list of
No, but it's-
bands in the back here, and we are all up on the internet too. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank
sorry,
you for joining us.
we don't have an audio component. Sorry.
All right, more questions? Coming down.
Oh, I forgot to point at people.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks. This is really interesting. I was just wondering if you were aware, many of you were in New York, of the Black Rock Coalition and what kind of effect what they did. How do you relate to Living Color and 21st Century Spies and the great Greg Tate? God bless him.
That was a big moment at my house when I was like 10 years old. My father brought home Vivid by Living Color, their first album with Cult of Personality on it. We do have another question over here. Who's had their hand up for a minute? And my dad is my black parent, and he's a guitar player. And it was kind of like, oh, hey, what this? It was a huge deal to have new black guitar music in the house. And then like doing a little bit more digging, and my dad found out about the Black Rock Coalition, and it was like this, there's more of us. Like, it just kind of made all these like lights kind of start shining on the map all around us. I think, it's the Black Rock Coalition, not the Black Punk Coalition. And I can listen to some rock music too, but I think a lot of those bands are doing something very different. So, I mean, I think with our book, we wanted, I hope this doesn't sound snobby, we wanted to narrow it down a bit and focus on punk as opposed to like any black guitar band.
Yeah. I wanted to say that Living Color is playing next week in LA. They're can't remember. They're opening for somebody that you might not want to see, but they're playing at the Velasco, and so I was in New York. I moved to New York in '91 while I was still in high school, and there was a bubbling underground black music scene that was like punk and ska and like hardcore kind of funky stuff. It was kind of interesting because there were some really great bands in the mix. There were some really terrible bands, but they all kind of like got like shoved on the same bill a lot, and seemed to be like bookers kind of were like, oh well, let's just put these bands together. So it created a scene that of like unlikely friends or sounds, But because, and I think that, and I've talked to, Greg and all the people, Daryl and the people who did Black Rock Coalition about this. It was kind of like you pay a membership and you're part of the Black Rock Coalition. And what that meant was that there was like some really great big bands like Living Color, 24/7 Spies, Bad Brains like Fishbone, and then there were just like a ton of terrible bands. And those terrible bands really put a stain on the word black rock or the term black rock. And I know for you guys, there was like, you guys like didn't want to be called black rock, right? And I know for me, when I started Afropunk, I was like, I worked really, really hard to distance myself from that stain, because there shouldn't be anything theoretically wrong with the word the term. I mean, it's kind of redundant, black rock, but it's like, but it also came with this baggage, right? Do you want to talk about that at all?
So much. Yeah, no, and you're right. That was the problem was, like, you're talking to Vernon Reid, like, I'm in the Black Rock Coalition. I remember Vernon came to some of our shows, and I was like, I can't fucking believe Vernon Reid is here, and da-da-da. And then, Black Rock Coalition, you see what the roster is, and you go to some shows, and you're like, that's nothing. Like, I don't care what color you are. I'm not listening to that. It's just not my vibe. And it also, if you think of punk in relation to rock, even if you're thinking about the 70s, like all of those punks, another thing that they were acting against was kind of corporate mainstream rock, even if that stuff now
That's the
sounds
first
experimental.
reaction.
Yeah,
the very first reaction is like,
was like, I don't want to be, I'm not gonna play Freebird, or whatever, like I'm not wearing.
We don't have wah-wah pedals.
We don't have wah-wah pedals. Right. If we do have leather pants, they got safety pins in them, but we're not trying to do that. But to your point about Greg Tate, he was someone who, he had a real vision, I feel like, as far as a critic. He could take a hip-hop record and compare it to, any sort of music. He would hear electronic elements and things. He just really, I feel like, especially in his writing style, he brought a new type of criticism into music journalism. So if Greg would show up and like or dislike anything, I would kind of take it as gospel. He did not like TV on the radio when we started.
Oh. Neither did I.
I know. I mean,
it took a while for them to get their sound together.
There was very little to like when we started. Like you were, like, and it was almost like in your screenplay. It's like there was a lot of. My dad came to the show, and it was the same deal.
Rough.
My dad is Nigerian, first generation immigrant, and basically, and I think people who know, it's like if you're not a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, you're like a snail, like under a boot somewhere who's not doing anything. But he was actually very, very encouraging after a point with my art and music stuff, because he was like, you're not good at anything else. So whatever you do, you can't fail at this. I'm just like, I wouldn't know how to fail at this, dude. I'm great.
Did you have this experience? My dad's Caribbean, and also was just like, I don't like every question is doing? But how do you make money?
Yeah,
right?
no,
it's
of
like,
course.
oh yeah, but how do you?
Yeah.
So it wasn't until his wife saw a review for Afropunk in like Essence or Ebony magazine at the doctor's office that he called me up and he's like, "You are in Essence," like, and then it's like, oh, now, well, thank you for
you're doing
the mainstream
something.
has like knighted me, so.
No, I had the same thing. The experience with the show was, my dad came. He hung out. He's very like he was like, "You're my kid. And I love you." But afterwards, I said, "What did you think about it?" And he said, "Well, if that's what you guys were trying to do, you totally did it." Thanks, man. Okay, I'll take it.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good.
I was like, thanks. I was like, you're an asshole, but touche.
That was the best version of that thing.
That thing. He's like, that was exactly what it was. And as far as the at least you were in essence.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, dude.
Well, yeah. I mean,
That's a
if
big
it was
deal.
in Maximum Rock and Roll, it was the fact that my dad's wife saw it at the dentist office.
Yeah.
It was like, here's a little
no, what are
blurb.
we doing? And that's how it goes. It's like if you see a review of some, your band, it's suddenly a tangible
even after
thing.
you said Essence, I was like,
I was very impressed. No,
God
Essence,
damn.
Essence and Ebony were not Touch TV on the radio with I don't know how
Well,
long the poll
how's
was.
this for irony? Essence owns Afropunk now. Wow. Afropunk Fest is run by Essence.
Wow.
wild.
Fest.
Wow.
So we're never gonna play it. No.
Yeah, I mean, you got an R&B song.
It is.
You got an R&B in your.
I'm working on a solo record.
Yeah, there you
The
go.
B-side's gonna be all just smooth. It's gonna be quiet storm.
I think we have a question here. The woman with dreads.
Hello. James Spooner is going to say, I saw you in 06, Georgia Southern University, Statesboro. Me and the other black punk kid I saw was a heavy metal kid. Dude, life-changing. We drove up to New York that summer and we saw our people. So it's really cool to see you here and see all of you here. So that's my kudos and snaps, and you have a big fan in the audience.
Appreciate it.
Let's see. All right, so I've done East Coast, now I'm on the West Coast. I'm a little older too, deceivingly older. When you get to a point, you're in a new city. I'm a musician as well, artist. Where do you find like-minded people without carousing and getting stuck in the Instagram vortex? Any recommendations? I don't have people here to put me on, so James, come to the rescue once again, please.
I mean, it definitely obviously gets harder to meet people who are like-minded, or you want to be in a band, like you're talking about starting a band with or something.
Just like-minded people, more or less.
I would just hang out in the foyer over here. And you know how you used to see somebody with a Misfits t-shirt or something, and you'd be like, oh, nice shirt, Now, obviously, that just means that they shop at Walmart, but but everyone here is wearing that shirt, so I think, this is probably the best place to start.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
When I first got here to LA, when I was starting a band, I remember I started putting up flyers. Because it was I've been 03 when I started putting up flyers and stuff like that. The internet's kind of there, but I was putting up flyers just to start a band. And some people would come in and we just end up being friends and stuff like that. And another guy put up a flyer looking for a singer for a band. And then I hit him up and he was just like, hey man, I'm not starting a band. I just wanted to hang out. And I was like, okay. And he's still my friend. So,
Sometimes you got to go analog,
Yeah, exactly. I was like, this is a really weird way to do it. But if you're in the air, just in that vicinity, I don't want to say go to Instagram or anything like that because you shouldn't. But if you hear about a show, just check that shit out because you might meet somebody there who's going to be a friend for 25 years. You never know.
Yeah, and there are the thing about Los Angeles is that there are specifically punk bars and or nights, So the one thing that I remember, who was it? This woman Garrett in the documentary Afropunk said oh, whenever I see a black person in the room, I just go up to them and say what's up, because we're already at the show, right? So it's go to the goth night or the metal night or whatever, and it's if there's another black person there, they guaranteed want to meet you,
we'll take one more question, and then that's going to be it. Also, everyone got a yellow wristband, and if you check on it, there are we're giving away 20 copies, so they're handwritten on the wristband. So if you got one of the 20, see my man Steve here after the program, and you get a free signed copy. All right, last question.
We also are selling some books, and
For those of you who didn't get the free one,
or if you want a gift for your niece or nephew with a septum ring. Yeah. That was our marketing plan. The publisher didn't like it. That's funny.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to say that as a white guy, long time into punk, I'm proud to say I have never suggested that a black person at a punk show listen to Bad Brains. I think they've already heard of them.
Thank you.
That's just needed to share that. But also, this is for question for James and for Chris. Like, I'm wondering who, you mentioned some people who are living who couldn't be in the book, regretfully, because parameters or time constraints, but who, like, would you have liked to be in the book that maybe they're not with us anymore? Like, just wondering about that. There's got to be a lot of people who just, polystyrene, or people that have passed and that you thought would be great.
yeah, I mean, so we had one of the main parameters that we put on the book is that it was punks it's supposed to be covering punk for the last 20 years, right? And so there were a lot of punks who were our age and older who were like, oh, I can't contribute, and because I don't know anything about what's happening now, At the same time, there are people who, like Honeychild, who's in her mid-50s, who is like still doing stuff. So she was like, yeah, I can talk. So then she was able to talk about stuff. It was her stories from the early 2000s, but she's still active. So to answer the question of like people who passed, I think about Matt Davis, who's in Afropunk, who I believe would still be really active had he not passed away. But we were still able to represent him through his sister, who is also, she's a professor, but she's also punk, and she did a beautiful comic about him. But nobody like specifically comes to mind in terms of, I don't know, do you have anybody?
I'm really happy with the people that we got, and it wasn't always so much like we want to give people their flowers who are kind of active and already known. We wanted to shine light on a lot of people who maybe weren't getting those flowers yet. We wanted to start the flower process for them. One thing I wish that had worked out a little bit better was there's a band called the Boll Weevils. They're like a pop punk band from Chicago. Their singer Daryl is also an emergency room doctor. He's black, and we were talking to him, and I couldn't quite find the angle for the piece, but he had some really, really interesting stories. And so in the back of my head, it's like, if we do a sequel, I need to find like another black person in the medical field who is progressive and punk and get them talking. Yeah. Like that's one where that's one of those, like, that one bow I just didn't quite tie with this book. Yeah. And that sticks with me.
And now that I'm hearing about you and your animation and stuff, it would have been like, damn, you could have tried to nail you down for a
comic?
For a comic.
Oh, totally done a comic.
But, yeah.
But, we were talking about the Black Rock Coalition being pay to play, and I think punk is never pay to play. We just wanted to work with people who were doing stuff that we found really intriguing. Yeah. And also, I know we're kind of winding down. I wanted to take a moment to thank the library for having us. My mom is a children's librarian, so the library was always a big part of my life coming up, and it's where I got some of my first punk music. I remember in one trip in 8th grade, I got like the Buzzcocks, the Clash, and the Velvet Underground all at once. Yeah. Yeah, no books, just some CDs.
Yeah.
But it was something.
I will say, I do have copies of Afropunk for sale out here, but if you don't want to buy it or can't, I've donated it to the library as well, so you can just check it out. So let's say our goodbyes, huh?
Yeah, and real quick, Thank you, Kash, Tunde. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been awesome. Kash is cast also?
Oh, yeah, the cast.
Oh, yeah, the cast.
The cast.
Thanks, guys. My friends.
Should we mention quickly like what's next, or some people always want to know
What
that
is
question.
next?
What do you have on the horizon?
Oh, what do I have on the horizon?
Solo project.
I got. Oh yeah, just keep it. But I'm working on my own record, just me, and it's not just me, but it's my own. And Sub Pop Records is supposed to put it out in the fall, if I finish on time, which I intend to. I got that. I'm acting in a few things that are gonna be out later this year, and one is I guess this is all out. One's the sequel to Twister, which I think is directed by Lee Isaac Chung, who directed the movie Minari. So it's going to be a really interesting take on that. And there's a Star Wars show called Skeleton Crew that's coming out in the fall too. I think those are the acting things.
Cool.
I auditioned for Skeleton Crew. I didn't get it.
What, you did?
I totally did.
Oh my God!
I totally did. I think I auditioned to be an alien. I didn't get it.
Mistakes were made.
It's okay.
What if it was the same role?
Dude, I would be stoked.
No,
Anytime I don't get something, I'm just like, I hope somebody I know or like gets it. It just kills it. That's great.
That's awesome. Person is much older than you.
We're gonna talk about
So,
it. We're gonna talk about that.
so
I don't. I have a couple of film things in the works, but nothing to tell about just yet. However, I'm excited because next week my wife and I are directing a pilot.
Nice.
Off of something something that I wrote and I've been working on for a couple of years, so I'm very excited. Hi, honey.
Nice.
Oh yes, guys, I perform with a thank you, babe. I perform with a sketch comedy group called Surprise Bitch. We do a lot of irreverent, I'll say, Mr. Show, Kids in the Hall style type of comedy. We do it at the Broadwater Theater and the Pack Theater. You just type in Surprise Bitch, Pack Theater, and you'll find us. Come on out and check out a show. We're pretty good.
I believe it.
Chris?
March 9th is our next show. March 9th. Thank you so much.
I'm working on my third novel and teaching a bunch of creative writing, so I'm pretty much just word nerding all the time, and I love it. Yeah.
And I also have another novel in the works, and I don't know, it's due in September, so let's hope I get it. And so, a year from now, or a year from there, maybe. But in the short term, I just remembered that Kash, Chris, and I are DJing, and you're welcome to join, at Footsie's on, I'm just looking, it's February 10th, right? It's a happy hour, 5 to 10, right?
Can you say Valentine's Day date?
So yeah, check. And you can find more Black Punk Now events or just like my events on spoonersnofun.com. There's an events page and there's a lot of stuff coming up. So come meet us outside. Say hi.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.